Namaste and welcome to Nirvega Vidya. In this video, we shall look at chapter 14 of the Bhagavad-Gita, which is Guna-Traya Vibhaga Yoga. Now, this is an important chapter when it comes to the Bhagavad-Gita in general, but also specifically with regard to the NET exam, this is quite important. Now, Krishna continues his exposition from the 13th chapter. If you remember, that is where he sets out the concepts of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. And Kshetra referring to Prakriti, Kshetrajna referring to Purusha, stating that all beings are born out of Mahat Brahma. He uses the term Mahat Brahma, which refers to Maya or Prakriti, which belongs to him. It is Maya is considered to be the power of the Lord. That's how Vedanta puts it. The beings that are born thus are bound by Trigunas. The Trigunas, now Guna again should not be understood as a quality, because when we use the term quality, for example, when we say the color red is the quality of an apple, there is a difference. It is something which inheres to a substance. Now, an apple can be separated from the color. There are green apples, for example, and the color red too can be found in other things which are not apples. So there is a difference between a quality, a guna, and a dravya. Now, trigunas, the term guna there is not to be translated as a quality, because it is not that Prakriti is a substance and Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva are qualities inhering to it. The way to understand it is to think of them as constituents, because they are inseparable. They are in themselves Prakriti. They are just three in a sense, they are just three aspects of the same Prakriti. There is no Prakriti apart from the Trigunas. There are no Trigunas apart from the Prakriti. So they are one and the same. So the Trigunas are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. The apparent union between the Purusha and Prakriti, between spirit and matter, is brought about by the Lord. When the jiva transcends the trigunas, it is liberated from birth, death, old age, and pains, and attains liberation. Now, most of this chapter is quite self-explanatory, so I'm not going to be going too much into detail explaining them. I have presented the key points. Now, when we come to the trigunas, the first one that Krishna speaks of is Sattva. Sattva is stainless, luminous, and pleasant, and the source of knowledge. Its bondage manifests as clinging to pleasure and knowledge. Pleasure here, the term he uses is sukha, which also means happiness. So pleasure need not be necessarily understood as referring to sense pleasure. It is happiness in general. So again, the important thing to understand is, even though sattva is considered to be the best of the gunas, it too is something which binds a man. All the three gunas, Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, all three lead to bondage. It is just that the bondage of Sattva is considered to be better of the two. It is like a golden chain, whereas the others are perhaps iron and rusted iron chain. So they all lead to bondage, and the bondage of Sattva manifests as clinging to happiness and knowledge. Wherever we feel the need to feel happy and the need to know, the desire for knowledge, that is a manifestation of Sattva in us. When Sattva is dominant, the light of knowledge shines through the sense organs. The fruit of Sattva is stainless, and those dominated by it go to the higher worlds after leaving the body. Now, I have mentioned the shlokas, I have given the reference everywhere. I would suggest that you go to the Bhagavad Gita and read the original Sanskrit, because it might come in handy when it comes to the NET exam, specifically for this chapter. Now, next we come to Rajas, which is of the nature of attachment and the source of craving, passion, and greed. It binds by making one attached to work. When Rajas predominates, there is greed, activity, commencement of works. There is motive in us. There is something which pushes us to do actions. Disquiet, because there is so much action in us, there is no peace. And desire, kama. The fruit of Rajas is dukkha, pain, and those dominated by it are reborn among human beings addicted to works. Now, the birth of those who are dominated by Sattva is in the higher worlds, whereas those who are dominated by Rajas are born in an intermediate level, which refers to human birth again. They do not go to higher worlds, nor do they go to lower worlds. They are born again among human beings. The third of the trigunas is Tamas, which deludes all beings and is the source of error, delusion, and ignorance. Tamas also means darkness in itself. Its bondage leads to pramada, which is error, alasya, which is sloth, laziness, and nidra, sleepiness. These are the three main qualities associated with tamas: pramada, alasya, nidra. When tamas is predominant, it manifests as gloom. The Sanskrit word used is aprakasha. Gloom meaning that the knowledge within us does not shine properly, that there is a general low mood, what we could call as a moodha avastha when we compare it with the chitta bhumis given by Vyasa Maharishi, where the consciousness is not shining brightly. There is a lack of motivation because there is too much inertia in us. We do not feel the motive, the drive in us to engage in actions. And there is error and delusion. Error again, pramada and delusion, moha. The fruit of tamas is ignorance, and those who are dominated by it are born amidst the deluded subhuman species. Krishna says that they are born as animals, not even as humans, those who are dominated by tamas. So that is about the three gunas. Now, once Krishna has given this exposition, given this knowledge to Arjuna, and we also saw that Krishna mentioned earlier in the beginning of the chapter that those who transcend the three gunas, they attain liberation. Those are the ones who attain the final goal of life. So Arjuna asks Krishna to explain the characteristics and behavior of one who has gone beyond the three gunas. And Krishna replies that such a liberated soul is undisturbed by and indifferent to the trigunas. He does not hanker after any of the trigunas, nor does he shun any of the trigunas. He does not, for instance, run after becoming more sattvic, and he's not. He does not. He's not averse to tamas and rajas, for instance. He says a person who has gone beyond the trigunas is perfectly equanimous. He does not. He has no attachment or repulsion to any of the trigunas. And again, he is equanimous when faced by various pairs of opposites such as heat and cold, pain and pleasure, honor and disgrace, friend and foe, etc. Equanimity, as we've seen, is an oft repeated concept in the Bhagavad Gita, which occupies a very important place in the entire spiritual instruction of Krishna. He repeats this in various places. Equanimity is spoken of as the characteristic which defines a person who has gone beyond the trigunas, and also a person who has attained complete liberation. So it is very important. We find it repeated in various places. And Krishna concludes by saying that he who has unwavering devotion to him, who is the ground of the universe, transcends the trigunas. So that is about chapter 14, which is Guna-Traya Vibhaga Yoga. Now, and as I mentioned, I would recommend that you read the original Sanskrit shlokas of this chapter, because my belief is that you could expect questions which refer directly to the shlokas when it comes to this chapter. So with that, we come to the end of this video. If you liked the video and you found it useful, do share it with your friends and family and whoever you find who would benefit from this. And also consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you.